Welcome to our makeup lesson. Today, we're going to be talking about something pretty important. It's going to be talking about time signatures. Now, some of us have had this lesson already, and we're just going to have some fun talking about what is going on with our time signatures and how to count and how to bring together everything with our time signatures, how to make it all work together. Okay? So, time signatures are made up of two different numbers. One of the numbers is on the top, and this tells us how many beats per measure. Beats per measure. Okay? And the second one tells us the type of beat, type of note, okay, that gets the beat. Gets the beat. Okay? So that's what's happening there. This 4 up at the top shows us the kind of measure that we have, okay? And how many beats per that measure. So if we have, for instance, a 4/4 measure, and here's our measures now, right here, we could have 4 quarter notes in a 4/4 measure. Okay? The quarter note in this one gets the beat. That's what the 4 on the bottom tells us, right here. That's what the 4 on the bottom tells us. It tells us a quarter note gets the beat. Now, if it happened to be a 2 on the bottom, then the note that would get the beat would be the half note. If it happened to be an 1/8 note on the bottom, then the 1/8 note would get the beat. And we're going to talk about what that means here in just a minute. But for right now, we're dealing with the most common of these things, and that is the 4/4, where the 4 on the top tells us there's 4 beats. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the note, the number on the bottom tells us that the quarter note, and if you make it into a fraction like this, the note on the bottom, you make it into a fraction like this over here, that kind of tells you what it is. This is 1/4 or a quarter. And if it just happened to so be that it was actually a 2 on the bottom, right, then you would see that the half note would get the beat. What would that look like? If we had a beat, a time signature here, let me get rid of all this stuff here. Here, you know what? We'll use that eraser there. That's easier to use. If we had a guy here that was 4/2, then there would still be 4 beats per measure right there. Okay? But the half note would get the beat. Okay? The 1/2 note would get the beat. So that would look like this. You would have a half note, and then another half note, another half note, and finally another half note. Now we rarely see this. We rarely see a 4/2 time. What we'll see more often is a 2/2 time. Just like that. And so what you end up with 2/2 time is you end up with 2 of these half notes per beat. Okay? It's kind of crazy. Now, let's go back here real quick and take a look at our first one that we did, 4/4. This is what most songs are in. It could also be a 3/4, or it could be a 2/4. These are the 3 most common time signatures. The 4/4 can also be written as, you'll see a 4/4 over here, it can also be written as common time with a big C, which is kind of cool. Okay? But what happens here with our 4/4, our 3/4, or our 2/4 is that this note down here on the bottom, the number on the bottom tells us that the quarter note gets the beat. And if our measure has 4 notes in it, 4 beats in it, then we'll get 4 quarter notes. But if it doesn't, then we'll get 3 because we're in 3/4, or we'll get 2 because we're in 2/4. Okay? So the top number tells us how many beats we get. The bottom note tells us what kind of note gets the beat. All right. We're going to come over here and take a look at this guy. There is a time signature that is very, very complicated. Okay, the ones that are easy are 4/4. This is what we start out with, 3/4, 2/4. These guys are all really, really easy. The one, however, that's hard is called 6/8. 6/8. 6/8, unfortunately, is a lie. It is not quite what it says it is. It is, but it also isn't. So it's a little bit of a lie. So just remember that as you work on this. When we go and take a look at our 4/4, we'll come back to 6/8 here in a second, but when we look at our 4/4, what if we want to take our quarter notes? 1, 2, 3, 4. What if we want to play those guys and we want to include some eighth notes, some notes that are faster than our regular quarter notes? For instance, we could have one quarter note here, and then we could have 2 eighth notes. And then we could have another quarter note and another quarter note. We would normally say 1, 2, 3, 4. That's how we would count that. The eighth note gets divided up into 2 equal subdivisions, and they still only take up 1 beat. So our 2 eighth notes here will just take up 1 beat instead of 2. Isn't that kind of interesting? Okay. So when they do that, we could also add another eighth note here at the end, and we could call that a te too. So anytime we subdivide our coordinates into eighth notes, we count 2 te. Now, some teachers will say 2 and. That's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. A lot of teachers will say and with that. And I have found over the years that system, while it's totally fine, there's nothing wrong with it, it's not my favorite. Does that make sense? I like the te system. So you'll hear me say te, you'll hear other teachers say and they're both fine. There's nothing wrong with either one of them. Okay? So when we subdivide the 4/4, we divide it up into 2 te, 3 te, 4 te, or we can say 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay, so that all works just fine. All right, back to 6/8 time, which, as we talked about, is a little bit of a lie. If we look at what it says, the 6/8 is saying there's 6 beats in each measure, and that the eighth note with its flag gets the beat. And while that's technically true, something happens that makes it a little bit of a lie. When you look at 6/8, we almost never see eighth note, eighth note, eighth note, 3 more eighth notes, all with their own flags, right? All by themselves. We never see that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're never taking a look at that. That's never how it works. How does it really work? How does it come together for us? Okay, normally what we see is we see eighth notes connected together on the bottom like this and like this. Now, remember our 4/4 time when we had our eighth notes and they were connected? They were connected in groups of 2. Groups of 2, groups of 2, groups of 2, and finally another group of 2. 1 te, 2 te, 3 te, 4 te. Now, when we look at our 6/8, we see they're grouped together in groups of 3. And it's very simple because they do have a count that comes with this. We call the first group 1. The second group is called 2. This is where our natural emphasis is inside of 6/8 time. That's where our natural emphasis is. And so what we'll do is we'll call it 1, la, li, and 2 la li. Isn't that kind of cool? So this time signature is a little weird. Really, we only have 2 beats. So it shouldn't be a 6 up there. It should be a 2. But we really can't do that. I'll show you why here in just a little bit. Why that doesn't work. And what we need under here, instead of the 8, we need the equivalent of 3 eighth notes all connected together. Well, the equivalent of that is pretty simple. The equivalent of all 3 eighth notes is a dotted quarter note. So this is actually the time signature right here. This is the time signature right here, the 2 over the dotted quarter note. That's the real time signature. But that just is weird and we just don't see it. They can't really write it that way. So they have to write it as kind of this weird 6/8 time. But 6/8 time always comes off as 2 beats of 3 notes each, subdivided like 4/4 is subdivided in 2 divisions of each of the beats. So that's the big thing to remember here. When you're in the 4s, the subdivisions are in 2. And when you're in the 6/8, the subdivisions are in 3. And we count it. 1 la li, 2 la li, 1 la li, 2 la li. Hopefully this is helpful. Talk to your teacher some more about this idea, the 6/8 time, because it really does help you figure out all kinds of fun stuff with that. Okay?